I went to Australia in January of 2011, and it was such a life-changing experience for me. And Australia was nothing like I expected. It was one of the best years of my life for sure. God really taught me a lot of things. I remember in one of my classes, Aaron Puddle was my favorite professor. Honestly, I really feel like he was one of the main reasons that I was supposed to go. He actually stopped the whole class and started to prophesy over some people, and I felt my heart pounding. I just had this feeling that he was gonna say something to me, or that God had a word for me. He looked at me and he said, "Jacinda," and I just started bawling. I don't know what, it was just, the presence of Jesus was so evident. It was pretty cool. And he said, I remember very clearly, he was like, "There's gonna be things you go through and they're gonna be hard." And I remember him just saying, they're gonna be hard, they're not gonna be easy. And I just remember him saying that God's gonna give you nothing that you can't handle. He said, no matter what comes your way, he knows and he has a plan. And he also told me that I was strong. And I don't always feel strong, but yeah, it was really encouraging. And I remember leaving there wondering what was gonna happen, that I was gonna have to be strong for. I remember coming home and seeing Dr. Bratfold right away, and he just sent me to have a CT or another ultrasound. And I remember going, and they found a mass the size of a Christmas orange inside of my body. When you hear that you might have cancer, it's kind of scary, you know? Jesus just gave me such a sense of peace, and I don't know, I know I couldn't have heard those words without knowing Jesus. I don't know what anyone would do. I was okay with whatever it was because I knew that God had a plan. And I remember just praying constantly every day, you know what, Jesus, if this is my time to go through cancer, and if I have to take chemo, whatever happens, I just place in your hands, and no matter what happens, I'm gonna live for you and give you the glory through everything, whether it's good or bad. So finally, 2 weeks after, the hardest 2 weeks of my life, I remember feeling, oh, okay, I need to get a haircut so bad. I was just bored of sitting around the house, and I looked at my hands and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to get this trimmed. And I usually get my hair cut in Lethbridge, but I was like, okay, I'm just getting a trim. And I remembered my really good friend Jenna, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she cuts hair. And so I remember Facebooking her and just hoping that she's able to fit me in right away. And she emailed me back, and we figured out a day, and so we drove there, and she asked how I was doing, and I told her about my surgery and what Dr. Nora thought it was, maybe. And I remember her saying, looking surprised and being like, you know what? I know someone going through something very similar to you. And I was kind of confused. I'm like, really? Like who? And then she said Justin Kleiber. And I felt such an overwhelming urge to email him that I needed to email him. So I looked him up, and I just clicked a message, and I typed in a little message. I asked no questions at all. I didn't really leave it open for a reply because I didn't know if he would. So I was pretty much just like, hey, this is Jacinda. I don't know if you remember me, but I got my hair cut today by Jana, your cousin. I remember talking about Jesus a lot. I didn't know where he was at with his faith, so I just made sure that I talked about God pretty much every sentence, I think. And I hit send, and I went upstairs and told my mom that I emailed him. She's like, oh, that's good. You know what, it'll be cool if you guys are there for each other to talk.
Yeah, needless to say, I waited as long as I could to reply. Played hard to get. Like 58 minutes later when I replied, I just gave her no opportunity not to message me back. I left like a question after every single sentence. And so, yeah, and it just totally made me forget why I was even driving to Calgary. It made the 3 hours feel like 20 minutes. And I remember that night, the night before the dreaded surgery, the surgery that nobody wants to go through, I couldn't sleep because I was hyped on a girl, not because I was even thinking about the next day. And that was very amazing and such a blessing because my head was upside down. Because in 2007, my parents shared with my brother and I that my father had a blood condition. It wasn't until late 2011 that we were informed that Dad had actually been diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which that was a knife in the chest. I cannot believe that a God who we loved and trusted could just sabotage our lives with the sickness that there's nothing we could do. We were all just in shock when after his 4th treatment that the doctor said it had gone into remission and that he was not going to need chemo for the time being. That same month, I decided to go to the doctors about the suspicious lump that I'd had for quite some time and just could not bring myself to go get checked. And my doctor immediately sent me for an ultrasound. So that night I went home and I kind of just went to my room. It was late and I just dropped to my knees and I just started praying. I got terribly mad at God. I mean, Dad just finished chemo and then my doctor saying I might have testicular cancer. Like, there was not a very large window where I had to even like emotionally settle down and wrap my head around things. I kind of reached for my Bible and I just forced my eyes shut and I just kind of, you know, God, if there's words that you can show me that would help me understand why I'm going through this, that you could show me why I deserve this and why I am going through any of this, just show me. And I pleaded for like 5 minutes and I kept my eyes shut and I was on my knees. My Bible was on my bed. I just kind of turned through and then I just kind of felt my hand stop, and then I opened my eyes and it was on the first page of Job. After reading this story, I like casually brushed through 40 chapters. It was like, I couldn't stop reading, and it just made me feel almost pathetic for thinking that God would give me something I couldn't handle, that I thought I had it worse than anybody in the world. And then I just read these words and it just kind of reminded me that it was so small and it was just a little bump in the road and that things should look up. April 27th, the day before surgery, that's when Jacinda texted me or Facebook messaged me and told me that somebody had told her that I was going through something similar, and I just assumed surgery or something. I really didn't know how to take something similar to my scenario. I felt good enough after surgery the next day to go to church, which felt pretty good. And it was in that time, waiting at home, waiting for results. I found out she was still waiting for her results, and we just kind of were there for each other. We were both sitting at home after surgery. I had no one to talk to but each other.
Definitely helped get me through the waiting period too. It was really good having him to talk to and seriously laughing at every single message he sent me. He would just say the silliest things. We talked straight for a full week, just back and forth a few times a day on message. So when he finally said, hey, we should hang out, I was pretty excited.
She had no idea it was a date.
No.
For sure.
So I got a phone call and got the results back. Dr. Bethel called me and he said, so you don't have cancer. And I just remember my heart just filled with joy.
About a week after that, I got the phone call from my doctor. And he started the phone call out pretty good. That said, Justin, we removed the tumor and I feel very confident that I got every part of it. It was working its way into your abdomen region and I had to take out a little more than we suspected, but I think we got all of it, which is good because the results came back and you had stage 1 seminoma cancer.
It's been really cool how we've been able to share Jesus through this whole thing, and just the little things he's been doing, just proving that he's right in the center of it the whole entire time has been so cool. He's the reason we're together, and I'm just so happy that it happened because I met Justin, and it turns out I'm marrying him, and He's the man of my dreams. He's everything I wanted. God knew what I needed. I was kind of dreading turning 25. It's kind of a big year, and I remember he picked me up and said to be ready by 5:30. He didn't show up till 6. He had happy birthday banners everywhere, and there was this box, this big box, and I was like, oh, maybe it's a necklace. So I opened it. He told me I had to open it, and it was this blindfold. So I had to put this blindfold on my face. We get there, and I still had no idea what was happening, and he kind of led me outside. I wanted to take the blindfold off so bad, but he wouldn't let me because he wanted it to be a surprise. I finally got to take it off, and it was like this little closet looking thing, and it was in a barn, and we got upstairs. There was a little tiny loft, and I was so nervous. I quickly sat down, and he looked like he was panicking, like, why is she sitting? And then I was like, oh my goodness, I should stand. And then he got on his knee and asked me to marry him. Every day, I thank Jesus for everything that I've been through. I'm just so thankful that we have him in the center of our lives, and that's our biggest prayer, I think. I know that is our biggest prayer, that he is the center of our lives in our marriage. And we really believe that we were sick just to meet, for God to bring us together. So it's been super cool. We learned so much and have grown so close through it all. We have such a special connection, and we had it right from the start just because of our situation.
Honestly, we wouldn't be together if it wasn't for God and divine intervention. And I just feel blessed every day that Jacinda's in my life, so I love her.